Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking out today's video and spending some of your time with me. And guys, today I got some news for y'all that I've been hearing or have heard from my Elite Series buddies this week about how the Elite Series pros have overwhelmingly voted to ban forward-facing sonar from the Elite Series tournaments, and Bassmaster has chose to ignore that. And I want to talk about this vote that they had a little bit and some of the bigger picture, the ramifications behind this decisions in today's episode. Also, guys, just a quick invitation. We are like 300 people away from 150,000 subscribers. Hopefully, guys, we can hit it today or tomorrow. If you guys would like to help out, subscribe to the channel. Free and easy to do that. That's a really good way to support the content here if you like it. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that's been taking the time to bookmark and use my Tackle Warehouse link in each video description for your tackle and your fishing gear purchases. If you're one of the people that have done that and bookmarked that link, you're get a big thank you from me and my family. You're really supporting the channel and really appreciate that. Okay, guys, I got a call this morning from one of my Elite Series buddies, fishes the Elite Series, and they decided to have a vote on this. And Bassmaster, and first of all, before I get into this, let me reiterate, this is coming to me from Elite Series pros. This is not anything Bassmaster has shared with me, or Bassmaster has not put this out. So by all rights, this isn't a declaration that Bassmaster has done this. There's no transparency, so we'll never know. But if you put these people if you subpoena these pros and put them under oath, they're going to tell you what I told you here is true here. But I want to reiterate the fact that this is it's speculation at this point, beyond speculation a little bit. So I want to just clarify that a little bit. I'm not speaking for Bassmaster when I do this. Anyway, according to some of my buddies on the Elite Series, they had this vote, and they were going to decide if they wanted to ban forward-facing sonar or not. And Bassmaster had told them, we will abide by the angler's decision on this. They had to vote. 58% of the Bassmaster Elite Series pros voted to ban forward-facing sonar from the Bassmaster Elite Series tournament. So this information was taken to the Bassmaster Advisory Board that Bassmaster has set up as far as the anglers to represent the voice of the anglers to Bassmaster. And the Bassmaster Angler Advisory Board decided to ignore this. There was only one person on the board that voted in line with the pros and say, yeah, I vote to ban forward-facing sonar from the tournaments. All the other anglers on that particular committee, which most of them are heavily forward-facing sonar Livescope addicts, they voted to ignore the will of the Elite Series pros. Almost a 60% margin voted to ban it and ignore that. Guys, this is the biggest bunch of bullshit in the world. It's like, why even have the vote? It's like, if they're not gonna abide by what the majority of the pros want, and why don't they just say, this is the dictatorship, this isn't a democracy, we don't care what you think, have a seat, shut up, if you don't like it, go fish somewhere else. And apparently the argument amongst the advisory board is one of the guys saying, look, our young anglers need this technology to fish. That's how they were raised. They don't know how to fish very good without it. So we can't take forward-facing sonar away from these young anglers because that's the only thing they know how to do. That was the overwhelming gist of the argument against it, which totally goes against the complete vote with it. Now, obviously, Bassmaster has pressured them on this. There's no way that Bassmaster is going to say, you guys hash this out and you guys decide what you want to do, and we'll abide by it. The whole thing about this, it goes back to the fact that this is all about the sponsorships from the electronic companies. That's the only thing it is. And guys, here's one of the things that I'll say about it. If Bassmaster was such a strong organization and had such an incredible business model, why do they rely so heavily on the subsidies from the forward-facing sonar companies, the electronic companies, to keep them in business? If they had such a strong product that everybody wanted, they would have sponsors knocking down the doors. But instead, they have to kowtow to these major electronic companies that have billions of dollars in marketing or billions of dollars in profit every year for money. That's the only thing that's the only reason this we're even having this conversation here. So where do you go to it beyond this? Because Bassmaster, one of the things real quick I'll say about Bassmaster, you hear them all the time saying, "Oh, we had a record amount of views this tournament. We had record attendance." It's like, it reminds me of those politicians that get up there and say, "Oh, we had a record turnout to this rally," and then all the video evidence and photographic evidence, shows that they're lying and it wasn't a record turnout. It's sort of the same, deal along those lines. So anyway, here's the bottom line with it. Obviously, Bassmaster has not announced their decision next year, what they're going to do with this. All I know is what the Elite Series pros have told me, that the Bassmaster Advisory Board, comprised of anglers, told the majority of the field to go pound sand, that we're not going to do this. Obviously, Bassmaster is not going to push back against it. We've heard rumors of it's going to be a 50-50 split. I've heard rumors it's going to be a 70-30 split. At this point, you don't know what the deal is with it. But make no mistake about it, guys, the electronic companies have their thumb on the scale on this. It doesn't make any difference. If there were 90% of the Bassmaster Elite Series pros that voted against it, they would still have it legal. They don't care. That's the thing about it. They could care less what the the viewpoint of the pros are. But here's the problem you have with that. It's like, it's going to be about another 3 years, and the Bassmaster Elite Series circuit, the way that it's structured right now, as far as the farm system through the Bassmaster Opens, and the fact that everybody is completely relying on Livescope, to advance to the Elite Series, the Bassmaster Elite Series circuit is going to look like you went to high school, college fishing tournament, or high school or college fishing tournament. Everybody out there is going to look like they're in high school or college, because in essence, that's what it is. And this is one of the things that, and this isn't this isn't a slam against younger anglers. Like I always say, I don't blame younger anglers for using this technology, because they've been forced to do so. They've been forced by Bassmaster. Bassmaster could have put a stop to this 10 years ago by banning forward-facing sonar. We wouldn't even have this conversation, and bass fishing would look like it used to look for the last 50 years, where most of the competitors out there in the circuit were in their 30s and their 40s. And that was the required, sort of the top of the game age that required that much decades of experience to get to the point where you could exceed or succeed at the top level of fishing. It's not, you couldn't do it being 20 years old. You didn't have the dirt time on the water. But now what we have is we have a generation of anglers out there that, let's say, for example, they're 20 years old and they're fishing the Opens and they're going to go to the Bassmaster Elite Series circuit. This is a precedence that's never happened before, because the average kid in the United States that loves to bass fish, and I'll use myself example, you go to school until you're 18 years old, and you work a part-time job. You're making $50 or $100 a week as a part-time job going to school. You don't have money for a boat. You don't have money for a Livescope. You don't have money for a new truck. If you are a typical kid in this country that is not subsidized or supported by family money, you can't make it. Because even if you're 20, let's say, for example, you're 20 years old and you went to college, you spent your whole life in school, and you can't work full time. You can't make hundreds of thousands of dollars that it's required to pay these entry fees and expenses and boats and trucks. So we have, in essence, created a generation of anglers due to this whole forward-facing sonar situation, where it's an elitist sport now, in terms of we have so many people in the sport that come from wealthy families, family money, independently wealthy people that are coming into the sport. And somebody that comes from a low to medium income family, they don't have a chance, guys. If you have a hard-working mom and dad that make an average of $40,000 or $50,000 a year, they can't do it. They can't afford to put their kids in a $100,000 truck and boat with Livescope out there. So Bassmaster has perpetuated the problem with this technology being such a integral part of success in the tournaments, that only the rich kids can afford it, or only the well-to-do kids can afford it with well-to-do families. I'll argue that point day in and day out, and I don't want to make anybody out there that have parents that want to support their kids feel bad. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the bigger picture. Is this is what it has turned into. We've turned it into an elitist sport because of this technology. So anyway, guys, once again, Bassmaster has threw the pros underneath the bus. They're going to do what they want to do. Let me know what you think about this, guys. I'll be curious to hear, and we'll see how it unfolds when they announce the rules for next year. So we'll talk later.